Dhamma talk. Yeah, the idea of leaving the world a better place after us is a very noble idea. But the trouble is that in this material world, we are conditioned not to be like that. So if we do it now, we have to first, in order to be successful, decondition what we have been used to, and then recondition ourselves, like what Long Po Liam has done. Because we just can't do it straight away and then hope to succeed, because we can only do it once and then we fall back to our old self. So are there better ways of achieving this, instead of just trying to do something now and then find that we will default back to our old habits? We always listen to a Dhamma talk, go to a retreat, come back a better person, but then after a while we'll be back to our old self. So I'm just asking around how we can do it better.
Yes, I agree with you entirely. I mean, that's why we practice, is because we're always falling back, giving up our good habits, falling back into old habits. Human beings do this, so we have to keep summoning up effort. So the best way to do it is to become ordained as a monk or a nun, because the lifestyle really conditions you in a good way constantly. It's a constant practice. If you're not able to do that, well, practice as a lay person, but you have to commit to the practice and find skillful ways to bring the practice into your life so you can't fall back too easily. And that's why we undertake keeping 5 precepts, 8 precepts. We undertake to meditate, listen to Dhamma regularly. We take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and we keep committing back to that over and over again through our life. So it just becomes normal for us to hold up Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, the teachings, the practice that the Buddha gave us, as just normal, as the best for us, rather than something we do occasionally or as a kind of hobby, or when we feel like it, and then at other times forget all about it. It doesn't work that way. What we're aiming for is to develop continuous practice and develop it as a skill. Ultimately we're developing wisdom, right view and wisdom into understanding suffering, its cause, and how to end suffering. That's a skill that you grow in through the practice, through experience. You get better at it. So don't give up. But you're right, we have to be heedful. That's why the Buddha gave us this last teaching before he died. You have to be heedful, because our tendency as humans is always to keep falling back into delusion, wrong views, carelessness, getting lost. That's the way. If we don't practice, if we're not careful, that's the habit of mind. So then we have to go against that by bringing up faith, effort, put it into the practice, and keep doing that over and over again.
I don't know. Okay, the next person. Could I please invite, I think there's a sister by the name of D.O.9 Su, Sydney. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrongly. Could you please unmute yourself? Yes, go ahead, sister.
Namaskar, Long Po. I'm just wondering about the meditation technique. So I used to do like breathing meditation, and then I just feel like when I do breathing meditation, sometimes I'm got lost. So today I changed to do the Putto. So when I do Putto, like Luang Ta Mahabua said, just like get the Putto in like about in this area on my chest. But when I do Putto, I just feel like when I listen to Luang Po, I just concentrate Putto. Then so I lost what you're talking, what you're teaching. So I really confused, like what should I do now?
I sympathize. I think I and probably most other people have these kind of problems coming up in meditation, especially at the beginning. You need a main meditation object that you keep returning to. Even if you do other meditations, sometimes you have to have a main object. I feel that's, for most people, that you have no choice but to develop one particular meditation object as much as possible. You have to experiment and find out what works for you. So it may be Buddha. So if you use Buddha as a meditation object, you want to stick with Buddha while you're doing it as much as you can. Buddha, 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 Buddha. And as your mind strays back to Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. So it's very frustrating practice, but if you do it a lot, you'll get better at it. If you're with the breath meditation, stay with the breath. Breathe in, you know, breathe out, you know, breathe in, you know, breathe out, you know, you stay with that. But of course, as you're doing it, your mind strays, wanders off into sleepiness or thinking, wandering around, fantasizing. Of course, that's what happens. So you have to be patient and keep bringing it back and keep working at it if you want to progress. Some people, they shorten their breath. So it's just like, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. So they don't have a space for a thought to come in, or they recite Buddha, 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 Buddha. So not a single thought can come in. Sometimes they do that. But you have to also be careful, because sometimes we try too hard and then we get a headache, or just find we can't sustain it. So try and find a balance in your effort. Find the right meditation object for you, a balance, and just keep working at it until some days you'll find you get some result. As far as listening to Dhamma goes, it's okay if you're sitting meditation, listening to a Dhamma talk, if your mind does gather into samadhi and become peaceful, then you can let go of the Dhamma talk and you just stay inside with the peaceful mind. That's okay. But if you're not peaceful and you're not mindful, stay with the Dhamma talk first. Make that the object of your mindfulness during the Dhamma talk. So you don't need to recite Buddha while you're listening to the Dhamma. You listen to the words, stick with that. But if your mind gathers together and goes in during the talk, that's okay. Then you forget the words, you just stay inside with your peaceful mind. I've had that before with listening to Ajahn Chah or Ajahn Mahabua. Or the worst one was translating for Ajahn Anand once. The talk was so good, and I was waiting, remembering what he was talking about. And I was going to give an English translation, but then my mind went into samadhi. And I couldn't remember what he said because I completely got into samadhi and I wasn't listening anymore. And he knew what had happened. So when he stopped talking and I had to translate and I couldn't say anything, he said, he's got into samadhi. So on the one hand, it was embarrassing. On the other hand, there's nothing I could do. It was quite a natural thing that happened. Sometimes it's like that. But generally, if you're not in deep samadhi, well, just listen to the talk and stick with Buddha when you're not talking. When you're not listening to the talk, when you don't have to do anything complicated, you can recite Buddha. So even walking, sitting, eating, many different activities, you can still recite Buddha, and that's good.
But Luang Por, if I'm stick with Putto, so I gonna forget to what you call Yoniso about it's coming, going, it's impermanent, all these things. Do I need to do it or just Putto now?
You do a lot of Buddha and less Yoniso Manasikara, but when the time is right, your mind will know, at the moment I feel calm, and then you reflect on the Dhamma. Maybe something comes up by itself, or you direct your mind to contemplate the body. But first you have to develop the Buddha, the mindfulness. But there'll be times when you have to contemplate, when you have to manasikana. There'll be times, you'll go to work and something happens. You can't just do Buddha, you have to think about it. What's the right thing to do here? Sometimes you have to think about your 5 precepts. Sometimes you have to think how to help somebody with metta. Sometimes you have to understand some problem that you don't understand. So sometimes you need to think and use yoniso manasikara. When the situation is right, your mind will tell you, this is the time to think it through, understand it. But if everything is smooth, everything is good, and you don't have any complex work to do or whatever, then maybe you can just do Buddha as much as you can through the day.
That's why I think when I went to work, like in the morning, I do the meditation on my way to work, like on the train. But when I went to work, all is gone until midday. I have lunch. Okay, I come back again. So I just feel like, how I gonna concentrate that? Because like my mind is gone with my work, and then okay, come back again, or maybe at the end of the day, okay, I just feel like I lost about 8 hours at work, like didn't do Putto or
Yeah,
breathing.
I used to be the same, but then one teacher told me, you make your mind the object of your your work, the object of your meditation during your work period. So you go to work, you're typing at a computer, you're doing different tasks. That becomes your meditation object for that period of time. So your mindfulness, you may have to put Buddha aside because you have the karma of having to work for a living, okay. So you do your work and you make that the basis for your mindfulness practice, how to do this job, keep my mind on the job, pay attention to it, learn how to do it well, mindfully, and you're also keeping the precepts while you do the job. You're bringing up the mindfulness. So although you're doing the job, you're also aware of how you feel, what you're thinking, but you make the job the center of your attention. Then when you finish the job, you have free time, then you maybe can go back to Buddha. You can't possibly be reciting Buddha if you have to speak to someone in your job. It won't work. So you have to stop Buddha and speak to that person. But when you speak to the person, you have to practice right speech. So precepts again. So mindful of what you're saying, the purpose, the meaning, the words you're choosing, the situation. Are you speaking to them, helping them usefully, or just expressing your emotion? That becomes your meditation while you're speaking to someone. That's your job. When you finish speaking, then you come back and then you can recite Buddha again. So you have to learn how to move between different objects. If you're working for a living, you have no choice. You have to do this. And it's a bit tiring. And then maybe one day you think, oh, enough of this, trying to work and do Buddha. Now I'm going to become a nun, Mechi, I'll become a Mechi. But before that point, you have to work with the situation. And just remember, even if you were to go and become a Mechi with Lungta Mahabor, Ajahn Chah, Mechi still has to work. Monks still have to work. But you learn how to manage your mind. So some jobs you can recite Buddha as you go around. Like I used to haul water. You have carry buckets of water on bamboo on your shoulder and you walk to places in the monastery. I would do Buddha as I do that. Or I'm carving toothwoods, Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. Or I'm sweeping the leaves. I can still Buddha, Buddha as I sweep leaves. So some things I can do Buddha. But if I'm giving Dhamma talk, I don't do Buddha because otherwise you just hear Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. So when I give a Dhamma talk, I'm explaining other things. So I put Buddha down. But if you practice a lot, it's not difficult to put a meditation object down temporarily and then you pick it up again. And really, you're still aware of yourself, aren't you? You may withdraw from the breath or withdraw from Buddha, and you're doing something else now. You're typing, you're talking, you're doing some other task, driving a car. But it's not like you're not mindful, are you? You're also aware of your body, your feelings, how your mood is as you're driving. That's what we're trying to do, is to bring the mindfulness into these other activities. And later, when you have time, you pick up Buddha again. You don't feel you've lost much or you've strayed very far from the path. It's not hard to come back to Buddha. So you get used to picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. So when you're working, we say, that's a time of developing wisdom, vipassana, more, because you have to thing and do many things. When you're quiet and calm and on your own, maybe then it's time you can do more samatha, more Buddho, sitting, walking. And you have to be able to adjust like that. Don't be too rigid. It's only going to be one way. You have to be open enough to learn from your experience.
Your advice is always so practical and very sensible. It's reachable by many of us who are practicing. So thank you so much for the good advice. There is a question here from someone. And the question reads like that, Lompo. Can you please share with us, Lompo, how many hours do you spend sleeping as a monk? The reason this question is asked is because this person is struggling on whether he or she should wake up early to do chanting and meditation before going to work. So, Lompo, might you give us some practical guidance on this, please?
What was the question? How many hours I meditate as a monk, or
how many
sleep?
hours do you sleep as a monk?
Sleep. Oh, well, the last week, not very much. The last week, I haven't had much merit. We say somebody who gets to sleep a lot has a lot of merit. Somebody who isn't able to sleep has no merit. So I haven't had much merit this week. It's not entirely controllable as a monk, because you have different tasks and different activities. So sometimes you have to put forth more effort than others. And also it depends on your mind. Like last night, for example, yesterday, like the last few days, was a very busy day. And the night before, I only got a couple of hours sleep because it was New Year's Eve and we had the late night program. Then yesterday, New Year's Day, we had 500 people come to the monastery, lots of things happening. And I had to give another talk in the evening. So it's quite a busy day. So I was assuming when I go back to my kuti, I'm going to sleep. I was thinking, I might get some rest now. But the mind didn't want to sleep. And it's not that I didn't want, the thought was sleep. Maybe that was craving, I don't know. The thought was I should sleep, I should rest. And I lay down for a while and I wasn't going to sleep. And my mind was very bright and very happy and peaceful. And I felt really good. So I thought, what's the point of sleeping? I feel so good. So I sat up and meditated till midnight, which is unusual because the night before I'd already put forth a lot of effort. And normally I would be very tired. But no, the mind was bright and that's just the mind. Sometimes you withdraw and you let the mind decide. So the mind was bright in samadhi. So I just went with that and sat meditation late last night. It's not always like that, but that's how it was last night. As far as working out how much to sleep, well, just start with what you feel comfortable with first. Whether it's 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, whatever you feel comfortable with, start there. And then as you practice more, you'll become aware where you may be able to reduce your sleep. That's what I did. Before I began meditating, I was 16 years old, I would sleep 8 or 9 hours a night, I think. I didn't really watch it that much, but my guess was around that much. As soon as I got interested in meditation, I started meditating, straight away the number of hours reduced quite naturally. My mind started to be brighter, so I stay awake a bit later, get up earlier. Quite naturally, the mind was happy with that, and the body wasn't feeling stressed. When I went to the monastery, people are very idealistic, so you should just sleep 4 hours a night. So I tried that, and some nights that was fine, but every night I found that wasn't enough. So I have a nap in the day sometimes for an hour, or occasionally sleep for 5 hours at night or something. So I did increase the amount of sleep again, but nothing like 8 hours a day. I couldn't sleep that much. So Now, generally, I sleep around 4 hours a night, generally. And if I'm lucky, if I have the merit, I might get an afternoon nap as well. If I'm not lucky, no merit, then I have to work through the day or meditate or do something through the day. Anyway, I find it hard to sleep long periods now. So 4 or 5 hours, even if I'm ill or working hard, usually I can just sleep 4 or 5 hours and that's it. My mind is awake. But there really is no absolute here. Some monks need more sleep and that's fine. Some need less. It's up to you as an individual to get to know your body's needs, because you don't want to be pushing your body to the point where you're torturing yourself or affecting your health. So get to know your body's needs, and some people seem to need more sleep than others. That's okay. You just learn what works for you. And the idea is always to develop mindfulness, samadhi, insight into the 3 characteristics. And if you sleep more, but you're developing your practice, that's okay. If you sleep less, that's okay. Everyone's a bit different. One thing, living with Ajahn Chah, everyone had the same conclusion living with Ajahn Chah, was that sleep was never delicious. Because Ajahn Chah had this knack of getting everyone to not sleep very much. Get up early in the morning, stay up late at night, listening to talks, meditating. So the monks got used to just giving up with their desire for sleep. You just put that to one side with Ajahn Chah and you just focus on the practice. So very energizing, but also quite hard work.
Sadhu Lumpur. I think it is very true. With a nourished mind through meditation, you find that your mind is a lot more alert, and you take to the daily activities a lot more at ease. And I think I hear from feedback from meditators too that gradually they sleep less and they meditate more, and they're a lot more alert during the daytime as well.